My parents always favored my brother, but the moment he found out I was worth $60 million, he looked like he was about to have a heart attack. My younger brother, Ethan, was always the center of my parents' world. Whatever he dreamed about somehow became reality because they made sure it happened. But whenever I asked for something, all I got was another lecture about reality, our family's financial situation, and my responsibilities. Ethan got his first superbike when he was 17. When I turned 17, I asked my parents for a computer, but instead they told me to get a part-time job at a coffee shop if I wanted one. At one point, Ethan decided he wanted to become an engineer, but after switching majors because he changed his mind, my parents praised him for his self-awareness. When I asked for help paying tuition for extra courses that would improve my skills, they told me I needed to work harder because it would build character. It did. It also taught me to stop expecting equal love from my parents. After graduating with a degree in business management, I moved abroad and started working as a real estate agent. Once I stopped obsessing over how differently my parents treated me compared to Ethan, life became a lot more peaceful. I made a decent living as an agent, not some crazy six-figure salary, but eventually I started my own real estate company. I invested the $400,000 I had saved while working as an agent into my business. At first, I lost a huge amount of money, but later I landed a major deal with a successful entrepreneur, and my company exploded. Before long, it was generating millions of dollars. Even after becoming a millionaire, I never showed off online. I didn't post flashy photos, wear expensive designer clothes, or buy luxury jewelry. My parents and Ethan had no idea what I'd built, because I intentionally kept my success private. Over the years, we continued gathering for family events, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. At every single gathering, Ethan was the star because his motorcycle modification startup had made around $600,000. Meanwhile, nobody even asked what I was doing with my life. They had no idea I was already a millionaire, and honestly, they never cared enough to find out. Then my grandfather passed away. He was the only person in my family who truly loved me unconditionally. He knew exactly how differently my parents treated Ethan and me. Losing him broke my heart because he was the only person who ever made me feel safe. My grandfather had saved $1 million in a bank account for his grandchildren. Even though he knew Ethan was my parents' favorite, he never treated either of us unfairly. He left legally binding instructions that the money had to be divided equally between Ethan and me because he believed fairness mattered more than favoritism. My parents were disappointed. At first, I assumed they wanted my share too, but I later found out Ethan's $500,000 inheritance was immediately used to pay off his debts. He had burned through money by switching college majors, buying expensive things, and failing at 3 different startups. They had spent years bragging about the $600,000 he made, but between his debts and my grandfather's inheritance, almost all of it disappeared. About a week later, my phone was flooded with calls and messages from my mom, my dad, and Ethan. For the first time in my life, they suddenly seemed interested in me. They asked how I was doing, whether I had bought a house, and if I had invested my inheritance. I knew exactly why. Eventually, they asked if I could help them financially. They told me, family should always help each other. I stayed silent and hung up. A few months later, our entire family got together for Christmas dinner. More than 18 relatives were there, including one of my cousins who knew everything about my life. One of my uncles asked how my career as a real estate agent was going. Before I could answer, Ethan laughed and said, "She's just an average real estate agent living an average life." My cousin immediately stepped in. She smiled and said, "Actually, she owns her own real estate company. It's worth around $100 million." The entire room went silent. Everyone just stared at me. Ethan's face instantly turned pale. My parents looked completely stunned. Nobody knew what to say. Then Ethan completely lost it. He yelled, "Why didn't you tell us? Why didn't you help me when my startup failed?" Within seconds, he started acting like the victim, accusing me of lying and saying I should have saved him because I had the money all along. My parents didn't defend me. They didn't say a single word. They just stood there in silence. At that moment, I realized nothing had changed. I quietly walked out of the gathering. A few months later, my dad called asking for financial help. I told him no. They never called me again.